I believe the present Declaration of Human Rights is a document of the first order of importance.
Similar to any human right, the realization of the human right to water and sanitation does not entail any prescription on the political or economic regimes that need to be put in place to promote that right. As a result, scholars have identified several contradictions to the right's approach to solve water and sanitation-related issues. We think that these contradictions become more prominent if put in humanitarian context, where water and sanitation issues are embedded in wider socio-political conditions that may hinder the realization of the human right to water and sanitation. With this video, we try to show how can the human right to water and sanitation be affected by humanitarian crises. Generally speaking, the human right to water and sanitation is derived from the right to an acceptable living standard. In contrast, international humanitarian law criminalizes acts that target wash facilities. In theory, the wording of related laws should secure inhabitants' right to drinking water and sanitation. However, what we see in reality are graphic examples. To illustrate, we use the Gaza Strip as a case study. From our viewpoint, we trace the violation of human rights to water and sanitation in Gaza to three main causes: existing water availability issues, the imposed political blockade, and the Israeli military operations. According to the United Nations, Gaza ranks as the third most densely populated area in the world, with the highest unemployment rate and more than half of its population below the poverty line. This highlights one of the debates around the realization of the human rights to water and sanitation. Simply, how can a sustainable service be provided without a sufficient purchasing power?
The primary water resources in Gaza is groundwater. Gaza does not have access to alternative water resources. The aquifer in Gaza is severely threatened by over-abstraction and pollution from untreated sewage and seawater intrusions. Here, the question of responsibility becomes more complex. Technically speaking, the Palestinian Water Authority is responsible for providing wash services. However, it has limited access to the available resources and purchases the defects from an Israeli company. Since 2007, Israel imposed a political blockage on Gaza. The blockage was previously supported by Egypt. Restriction on various goods was imposed. Consequently, wash services are not functioning, probably due to the lack of fuel and electricity. The situation also worsens as the movement of people to and from Gaza is restricted.
People not only die because of the bombs, people not only die because they are locked inside without medical treatment, but people also die because they get sick from the very unhealthy living conditions.
The situation became more graphic due to the Israeli military operations. Since 2008, Israel has conducted 4 military operations on Gaza. The resultant death tolls of these operations account to more than 4,000, including women and children. Wash facilities were also severely affected. The numbers you see on the screen now are obtained from various international organizations such as UNRWA, eWash, and UNDP. The situation in reality is much more than the numbers we have presented. In 2018, the United Nations declared that the escalating wash crisis would render the Gaza Strip unlivable by 2020. What do you think? Is the current status of the realization of a human right to water and sanitation after a year from that declaration and an additional military operation last May?
So the most prominent obstacle in this human rights crisis, and that includes the water crisis, is impunity. The solution to that, what we all can do, is use the accountability systems that we have in place. That requires the US to stop using its veto at the UN Security Council. That requires that there's no obstruction by any state or any actors of the investigations happening by the International Criminal Court. That requires third states to end the complicity of their corporations in these violations.